Is Meta a stock to buy in 2023, and more specifically right before they report earnings here tomorrow? So first things first, if you watch this channel, you know I share my real money portfolio. We are up to $139,356. Year to date, we're up $26,800, which is pretty awesome, up 24%. And now all time, if you've been following for a while, you remember we were down pretty bad last year. We have now recovered and we're up to a gain of $768. Since February 15th, 2022, we have put in $138,444 and we are now at a value of $139,115. I always share my portfolio here. If you want more details on this, I share more specifics and more presentations and just more stuff in my email newsletter, austin.substack.com. It's linked in the description below. Meta is still my largest position, so I'm talking about it here in this video. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a fan of the company. It's my largest position. Taiwan Semi, Alibaba, which is a new one. I'm going to send an email out to my email subscribers, specifically why I bought Alibaba, even though I've made videos about why I didn't want to own the stock. Hey, you could change your mind, people, and I did, sharing that transparently here. There's always new inputs and there's always reasons to take in new information and change your mind when it makes sense. So I'll share more details about Alibaba first in my email newsletter and then in future videos. Tesla still $14,600 position, Rocket Lab $13,634, and then Snowflake, Datadog, GitLab, Mercado Libre, Brookfield Asset Management, and Brookfield Corporation. You'll notice if you've been following, I sold Shopify. Again, I sent an email out to my email subscribers. That's where you can get every single transaction in my portfolio. All right, today we're talking about Meta because they report earnings. If we go over to earnings, they report earnings on February 1st, 2023, post-market. Expected earnings per share, normalized earnings per share, $2.23. The GAAP estimate, generally accepted accounting principles, is $224 on revenue of $31.69 billion. What do I think is going to happen for earnings? What's my prediction? I have no idea. No idea if they're going to beat revenue, no idea if they're going to miss, no idea if they're going to beat on earnings. I have no clue. What I do know is that I'm a fan of what Meta has built. They have built one of the largest advertising networks and the most successful advertising platforms in the history of the world. I'll get into this, right? But these are some of their metrics, right? And these are their daily and monthly operating users. So 1,000 here is a billion monthly active users. They reached a billion monthly active users in 2012 on, basically it was just Facebook at that time, right? And then they've continued to grow that 16%, 13%, 14%. They were still growing it double digits in 2020, up to 2.797 billion monthly active users across their family of applications, right? That's Instagram, that's WhatsApp, that's Facebook, that's their different properties. Then in 2021, they're at 2.912 billion, and over the last 12 months, they're at 2.958 billion. And then they've also increased their average revenue per user from $5.03 to $41 average revenue per user, which is just insane. And that's through selling more advertisements, right? And so anyways, they have created, in my opinion, one of the most valuable and important advertising platforms for small businesses and businesses in general in the world, right? And the reason that Facebook stock is down so bad, it's down 52% over the last year, is because the market dropped, right? And so even the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts of the world are still, down or not doing as well. And this big shift to investing in reality labs and the metaverse. Everybody hates it. And so again, another thing right here is we are looking at operating income, right? So we're looking at operating income for the family of apps. These are the apps, everything under Facebook and Meta properties other than reality labs, which is Oculus and those headsets, right? So operating income in 2019 was 28.4 billion. Grew to 39 billion in 2020, and then in 2021, 56.9 billion, and then over the last 12 months, 47.87. So 2021, obviously a strong year, right? Reality Labs is, again, the metaverse portion of the business, is a drag on overall operating income. And this is where a lot of the negativity in the company has been. People do not believe in this, and the numbers show that it is, in fact, a drag on business. It requires heavy investment. Minus 4.5 billion in 2019, minus 6.6 billion in 2020, minus 10 billion in 2021, and then minus 12.7 billion over the last 12 months. Now, Meta happens to be making this investment at almost exactly the worst time possible in terms of the economic scenario, where interest rates are rising, inflation is rising, and we're in some type of recessionary environment. So that's a negative, right? Like, ideally, they would have not committed to this and then been able to just keep being extremely profitable with the family of apps business and advertising, and just been in a more secure place, right? In an unknown macroeconomic scenario. But in my opinion, this is actually the perfect time for a company like Facebook to be making, or Meta, to be making these investments into future sustained growth and at least trying something. Whether or not the metaverse is successful long term, I don't know. Nobody knows. I do think it will end up being successful, but even if I'm wrong, then they simply turn this side of the business off, and basically overnight they get $12.7 billion in operating income back, because it's still there. It's still there in this side of the business, right? And then they would just continue investing in advertising. Now, honestly, if that happened, yes, it would still be an exciting business, but it potentially changes the thesis for investing in the stock. They'd obviously be more profitable, right? But I think the true future of Facebook and Meta requires getting into a new market, so that they don't just, get to the status quo and eventually just fall off the face of the earth into irrelevancy as, the advertising starts to plateau or shrink. They are investing into the next thing, the next computing platform with the metaverse. That's going to take years. And so this isn't about next week or tomorrow's earnings report. So I'm looking much further out than that. Now, we do need to see some things, and if it is a strong earnings report, I'm sure the stock will rally, right? But that's not how I invest. I don't invest one earnings report to the next. Let's talk about valuation, right? This is the reason, on top of the fact that I do think Mark Zuckerberg is actually a good CEO, and I like the risks that he's taking and at least trying something new, whether that's, again, the metaverse or something else. That's what I want to see, is innovation from companies. Let's talk about valuation, right? They are currently trading at an earnings per share yield of 6.11%, and they're at a blended price to earnings ratio of 16.38. It's almost never traded at a price to earnings ratio as low as it's trading right now. Again, 16 price to earnings ratio. Even in COVID 2020, it was at 20. Back in 2018, when there was all these security issues and stuff about election interference and all that, they got down to 16.59. But other than that, it's really never been that low on a price to earnings basis. And if we jump over, if you want to look at price to earnings, sure, we can look at price to earnings. We'll go to estimates. We got analyst estimates in there. It is, even at, again, a price to earnings ratio of 16, which is historically low, they'd be growing earnings by 25 and then 17% in 2025. And I'm sure they would actually be able to grow in, 26 through 28, but we'll just go to 25. Price to earnings ratio of 16. You're still looking at a 10% annualized rate of return. And so I'm going to continue holding Meta. This earnings report isn't going to make or break for me. I don't really have an opinion on if they're going to beat earnings or miss earnings. I don't care. I don't invest from quarter to quarter. We talked about, this is their income statement, right? This is a platform called stratosphere.io. They have a free and a paid version. Look at their revenue growth. From 2013 to 2021, they grew from $7.8 billion in revenue to $117.9 billion in revenue. And their gross profit margin, and this is what I think is just underappreciated about Facebook. 82% gross profit margin in 2014, and still, even with all the craziness and all the investment in different things, they're still at an 80.8% gross profit margin in 2021. And you can see what has increased is their R&D expenses, right? So and this is the challenge here, is that we see that their revenue is only growing 21% in 2020, 37% in 2021, which is pretty strong, and then 5% over the last 12 months. If we look at R&D expenses, because of things like Reality Labs, that's growing pretty strong, 35%, 33%, and then 42%. That's because of all of this investment into AI and Reality Labs and things like that. Now, selling and general and administrative expenses, they're still paying a lot for marketing. Again, that's this big shift into the metaverse and advertising for Oculus. In my opinion, these are variable, and these are going to be able to come down over time. And then I think revenue growth is going to pick up over time, or at least stay, around 10 to 12%, at least over the next 3 to 5 years. In operating income, again, we talked about this. This is that investment in Reality Labs. Look at the hit that they took. In 2021, they had $46.7 billion in operating income. Then it's down to $35.1 billion over the last 12 months. That's that 11 to 12 billion dollar investment into Reality Labs that they're making, and it's a negative drag on the business right now. Again, either Reality Labs could become profitable and free cash flow positive, then this turns around, or they just stop investing in Reality Labs, shut it down, and they pretty much automatically get that 10 to 12 billion dollars in operating income back per year, right? And so I'm a fan of Metaverse. I'm going to keep holding it. I'm a fan of Zuckerberg, even though he's extremely unpopular as a CEO. If you enjoyed this video, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Throw a like down and subscribe to the channel. Comment down if there's any stocks you want me to look at. And then again, you can support me by just checking out my email newsletter, austin.substack.com. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching, and come back. I'm going to keep covering my portfolio. I'm trying to build it up to $1 million, and I'm going to share the good and the bad along the way and evaluate companies that I own and that I'm looking at. I'm not telling you what to do. You make your own decisions. I'm not a financial advisor. Have a great day.